Today's headline is a fight with hobos. The subheadline says 24 men hurt. The sheriff takes 65 prisoners. This story originally came from Buffalo on August 24th. It says, when Sheriff Taggart granted permission to Count Rybadowski's hobos to rest here a while, it was with the understanding that they should leave the county at the expiration of 3 days. The time limit expired this morning, and notwithstanding a reminder from the sheriff that they were expected to leave, the army was still in camp, and the count said it would stay there until he got ready to move to Woodlawn Beach. The sheriff said they must get out of the county at once, and at 2 p.m. with a force of deputies, he left for the camp, with the determination to compel them to quit the county. The camp was at Cheektowaga, outside the city lines. Sheriff Taggart is about 60 years old and built like a gladiator. He swore in 25 deputies, put himself at their head, and set out to disperse the army. He arrived at the camp and placed the count and his lieutenants under arrest and started with them for Justice Forrester's court, half a mile away, where they were to be tried. The army, numbering 250 men, fell in behind the prisoners. When they arrived at Justice Forrester's court, the count was permitted to speak to some of his followers. He addressed them in Polish, and before the sheriff could interfere, the crowd had closed in around the count, and he was beyond the reach of the sheriff. The army formed a hollow square around the count, and swinging their clubs around their heads, defied the sheriff to take him. With only 30 men, the sheriff was nonplussed for a moment. It was outside the city line, and the police, stationed 100 feet away, could not legally interfere. Sheriff Taggart called to one of his deputies, Ed Williams, 6'6", and told him to go forward and arrest the count. As Williams approached the lines, a pole struck at him, and Williams knocked him senseless. "Come on," cried Police Captain Colleen to his mounted men who were itching for a fight, and 15 of them dashed at the common wheelers with the deputies at their horses' heels. The police used their clubs, the deputies their revolvers and clubs, and the count's champions both clubs and revolvers. In 15 minutes the fight was over, and the 25 Coxyites with broken heads were groaning on the ground. The count, seeing that most of his followers had fled, ran after them, and the remnant of his band followed. Sheriff Taggart's men followed on a run. They overtook the count and arrested him and several of his followers. The others were closely pursued, the sheriff giving orders that every man of them be arrested. The count stood inactive in the midst of his followers and took no hand in the fight. Samuel Rosen of Chicago shot Deputy Spencer, the bullet plowing through Spencer's scalp. Deputy John O'Brien, who was armed with a shotgun, turned it on Rosen, and the contents lodged in his leg. His injuries are the most serious. All will recover. Sheriff Taggart made prisoners of 65 of the Coxyites. All were convicted as tramps and marched to the penitentiary tonight to serve terms of 30 days. The police have arrested as many more who will be tried tomorrow. The count was badly handled and bruised. He will be held for the grand jury. 25 of the hobos and deputy sheriffs were injured in the fight. 9 hobos were so badly hurt that it was necessary to take them to the hospital. The count and 150 of his followers have been placed under arrest, the count being held for assault in the 2nd degree, for which he can receive 5 years imprisonment. A score of others had their heads cut open by policemen's clubs and were treated on the spot by the ambulance physicians, who did not deem it necessary to take them to the hospital. The count himself was badly cut under the eye by the fist of a sheriff. The battle occurred about 5 o'clock this afternoon. This story came from the great state of New York, being reported in the New York Sun of August 25th, 1894. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave, to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.